Hi, my name is Teresa Medina. I am a student and I'm here at the Cien event to represent the youth. The topic today is the law enforcement in the community, and I think it's a really important topic just because you want to have a great community connection with the law enforcement.
Hi everyone, Willie Hernandez, Public Affairs Manager for Kaiser Permanente. Kaiser Permanente and our staff are really excited to be here today to hear from our community members, to hear from the law enforcement community, and we're here to learn and to listen.
Hi, my name is Diana Ortiz.
My name is Hernandez.
And we're interns at the Community Foundation, and we're here to learn more about how to help our community become a better place and just grow our professional development.
We're all here in conversations about the police force. Speaking as a graduate of Sonoma State University, soon to be graduate this May, in criminology and criminal justice studies, we need to find common ground, plain and simple. Cien is providing that common ground, so we're just very grateful to be here, right? Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're getting started. Where's my sister Daniela? She always tells me not to do that, and it works every single time like a charm. All right, well, good morning and buenos días y bienvenidos a todos. This is Cien's second program of 2023. We're about to get into a proactive conversation with our panel of law enforcement leaders, and thank you so much for being with us today, and thank you very much to the Luther Burbank Center team for their partnership and for their willingness to always host these honest and difficult conversations that need to be had here in Sonoma County. Last month, I was educated by a tribal friend when we did our land acknowledgement, and out of respect to her feedback, we would like to do our land acknowledgement again and ask everyone to please stand. Today, Cien, Sonoma County is humbled to bring us together on the lands of the Southern Pomo, Great and Rancheria people. We celebrate the active work of their descendants to preserve and nourish their indigenous culture and identity. We acknowledge the Southern Pomo, Great and Rancheria people as the traditional stewards and custodians of this region. We honor with gratitude the land itself, all of its ancestors, past, present, and future. Cien respects the enduring relationships that exist between today's Southern Pomo, Great and Rancheria people and their traditional territories. Thank you. Once again, thank you very much for being here. My name is Herman G. Hernandez, and my pronouns are he, him, el, and I'm the proud executive director of Cien, Sonoma County. Today's program could not have been made possible without our dynamic design team of volunteers. Yes, that is correct. Our design team are a group of volunteers who I want to quickly recognize. First, our co-chairs, Ana Maria Tamayo and Roberto Soto. And also, yes, Roberto Soto and Ana Maria's. We also had Patrick McDonald, Ernesto Olivares, Herman J. Hernandez, which is my father. That's not me, I'm Herman G. Ellen Velasquez Muralles, and Monica Avina. They put in a lot of time, thought, and outreach into today's questions and program. With the help of community organizations, law enforcement oversight leaders, and community advocates and activists, our design team came up with over 40 questions. And over the last 3 weeks, we've captured common themes and questions and worked hard to consolidate them so that we can fit our conversation within an hour and 10 minutes. So thank you very much to the design team, and we appreciate your hard work. Now we want to welcome our students. At this point, if there are any youth students or high school or college students in the room, we're going to ask you to please stand, and let's give them a nice warm Cien welcome. I definitely know there's more students than that. They're hiding. Thank you so much. That's our future right there. Now we want to welcome our community engagers and our parent organizations who are with us today. We have community leaders from Roseland CBI and Equidad, Cesar Chavez Language Academy, Corazon Healdsburg, the Healdsburg High School DLAC, La Familia Sana, Mujeres Unidas de Roseland, Native American Independent Living Demonstration Project, Parent Voices of Sonoma County, Rincon Valley, and Santa Rosa City Schools DLAC. So thank you so much for bringing our parents and the community members. Now, if this microphone stays upright, we want to recognize our elected officials. And what I'm going to ask, because sometimes if we ask people to stand and then you clap, it takes us a long time. And a lot of the feedback I got from the last program is that I reminded a lot of people of my father because I was talking too long. So what I would like to do is not remind you of my father. I mean, he does have great hair. I don't have any. But I'm going to recognize our elected officials and our dignitaries, ask them to stand, but please hold your applause till the end. So today we have joining us Carlos Afre from the Guatemalan Consulate General's Office, Maria Elena Arenas and Mireya Magaña Galvez from the Mexican Consulate General's Office, Laura Beltran, representing the Office of Assemblymember Cecilia Aguirre Curry, Donna Zapata and Kai Cooper, representing the Office of Senator Mike McGuire, Will Tesconi, representing the Office of Assemblymember Jim Wood, and Ana Maria Tamayo, representing Assemblymember Damon Conley's office. We also, of course, we have Carla Rodriguez, the Sonoma County District Attorney. Sheriff Eddie Engram is with us this morning. We also have Natalie Rogers, the mayor of the city of Santa Rosa. Eddie Alvarez, council member of the city of Santa Rosa. Rosa Reynosa, mayor of the town of Windsor. Sam Salmon, council member, town of Windsor. David Hagel, the vice mayor of the city of Healdsburg. Second district supervisor, David Rabbit. Gerard Giudici, city council member for Roner Park, as well as Susan Hollinsworth Adams, vice mayor of Roner Park. And I'm not going to mention all the school board members who are also with us this morning, but thank you so much for being with us today. Once again, because of the feedback I received at the last program, I just want to point out a few things. On the looping slideshow, there's a bunch of QR codes. One of them is going to be very important for you to ask questions. You'll see a few of them where you can actually meet our guest speakers. It has their brief bios, as well as we can't do what we do without the investment and trust that we have from our premier partners and our sustaining members, and you'll see their logos in the background looping through that slideshow. And we also want to give a special welcome to the Healthcare Foundation of Northern Sonoma County and the St. Helena Citizens for a Sustainable Future, because they are Cien's newest sustaining members. And last reminder, we know that not everyone could attend these programs, but we want to give a huge shout out to Nexo Media and Hector Velasquez's team, because they're recording today's program, and they're going to be recording every program this year. So if you missed January's, I highly recommend you watch that one. But because of their team, they're going to be recording, and we could share this with the 3,000 followers and members of Cien. So now we really appreciate Sheriff Engram, District Attorney Rodriguez, and Santa Rosa Police Chief Cregan for taking time from their busy schedules to be with us today. Cien has been looking forward to hosting this proactive conversation. As a matter of fact, the first time we ever had these three positions in one room was in reaction to the tragic murder of Andy Lopez, who was shot 7 times by Sheriff Eric Galehouse in October of 2013. It's almost 10 years later, and I still ask myself the same question. What if the law enforcement culture and the law enforcement system treated people of color the same way they treat their own? How would law enforcement look in Sonoma County and in our nation? It is important to note that in my opening remarks, I'm not speaking on behalf of the entire Latinx community, nor am I speaking and representing the Sonoma County BIPOC community. I'm here today as an ordinary citizen that grew up in a biracial, bicultural, bilingual household in the furry gem of a town known as Guerneville, who now lives in the city of Santa Rosa, happens to be the proud executive director of Cien, is happily married to somebody that's in this room, and has a 2.5-year-old puppers named Moose. Now, the comments, the feelings, and the perspectives I share today are real. Most of them are mine, and some of them have been shared by community members who did not feel comfortable being with us today, or who cannot trust sharing these feelings directly with our guests. And that's kind of crazy. I just can't understand how the richest country in the world with the most expensive criminal legal system has such a large distrust where the majority of people who survive violence or even experience it prefer to do nothing over telling their local law enforcement. We just had an honest conversation about anti-blackness in January, and Dr. Strobel took a sold-out room just like this through the history of the white supremacy culture and its origins in the U.S. And Cien pledged to do our very best to keep anti-blackness at the forefront of everything we do. And I know we're not going to be perfect, but in doing so, we have to be honest. When it comes to the perpetuation of white supremacy culture in the U.S., law enforcement has a huge role to play. They have a long history of obeying and enforcing anti-blackness laws created by federal, state, and local lawmakers that have disproportionately impacted our BIPOC communities, starting with the Black and African American communities and the Jim Crow laws, the complete erasure and abuse of the Native American culture, enforcing the Chinese Exclusion Act and the incarceration of Japanese Americans during World War II, enforcing Operation Wetback, deporting 1 million Mexicans, some who were part of the Bracero program and working here legally, and even our LGBTQIA plus community. Just look up the Compton's cafeteria riot. My point is that none of this is new. We've known about this for generations, but we are just barely gaining the courage to actually talk about it. I want to give a sincere shout out to Lieutenant Tommy Isaacson. He's from the Santa Rosa Police Department. He invited me to participate in the department's first ever implicit bias training, where I learned in disbelief about some of these racist laws that were enforced on communities of color throughout our nation's history. That implicit bias training is definitely something that I believe all of our local law enforcement should be requiring, because at the end of the day, what matters most is not intent, but actions. Which brings me to another point. I really appreciate the Sonoma County Law Enforcement Chiefs Association for taking a stand against the brutal beating and murder of Tyree Nichols that led to the firing of 5 Black Memphis police officers. But still, we're all very aware that actions speak louder than a press release and your words. And in Sonoma County, we've lost community members during encounters with those sworn to protect and serve. Andy Lopez, Jeremiah Chase, Quan Chung Kao, David Ward, and most recently, David Pelaez Chavez. I know we have 5 of the 9 police chiefs with us today and a very large amount of law enforcement professionals. So it's rather intimidating to be up here giving you this kind of message. But it is necessary if we're actually going to change. We appreciate you and I appreciate you. I appreciate you being here. But I hope you realize that today's law enforcement divisions and problems are deeply rooted in how our country was created. This is not a problem of a few bad apples. What we have is a cultural problem. and a systemically racist problem. The phrase, "it's just a few bad apples," really ignores the big picture. What we really need is to root out the entire apple orchard and replant it. The system needs to be reimagined and restructured because it's not working, especially for our Latinx and BIPOC community in Sonoma County. So we have a lot of work to do, and I'm being told that I only have a minute and I still have like one more paragraph to go. But again, I want to leave you with my question. If law enforcement culture and law enforcement system treated people of color the same way they treat their own, how would law enforcement look in Sonoma County and our nation? And I'm hoping that we might get some answers and some visions today in our proactive conversation with our local leaders. Now I'm going to transition to our panel, and at this moment, I'd like to invite up today's moderator, Ernesto Olivares. He is a former Santa Rosa City Council member and the first Latinx mayor in the city's history. He's also a retired police lieutenant and serves as executive director of the California Violence Prevention Network. Ernesto has over 40 years of public service, and we appreciate him sharing his time, wisdom, and help in designing and moderating today's program. Let's give him a nice warm welcome. Thank you so much.
I want to begin by thanking all of you for being here today for this very important conversation. And at this time, I would like to please welcome to the stage our District Attorney, Carla Rodriguez, Santa Rosa Police Chief John Cregan, and Sonoma County Sheriff Eddie Engram. Please welcome them to the stage. And I want to start by thanking them for, again, for taking the time out of their busy schedule to be here for this very important conversation. I see today's discussion as a great opportunity for us to learn from these three leaders, and more importantly, for us to learn how the community can partner with them to help make Sonoma County a place where everyone feels safe and secure. However, we can't have this conversation without acknowledging other law enforcement leaders and criminal justice partners who are in the audience here with us today. I would like to ask them to stand and please remain standing as I call their names, and please hold your applause until after I'm done. Thank you. Petaluma Police Chief Ken Savano, Rohnert Park Public Safety Director Tim Matos, Rohnert Park Deputy Chief Kevin Kilgore, please stand. Sebastopol Police Chief Ron Nelson, please stand. Windsor Police Chief Michael Rush, please stand. Chief Probation Officer Vanessa Fuchs, Sonoma County Public Defender Brian Morris, and Iolero Director John Alden. If you would please remain standing for just a bit longer, because I also want to acknowledge all the other law enforcement officers and criminal justice partners who are with us here today. Please stand and be recognized. Please. Please, don't be shy. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And we all thank you for your service. And now let's get the conversation started. Let me transition over to the comfy seat here. Okay, we're on? Are we on? Yeah? Good, thank you. This first question is going to be for all of our guests, and we're going to start with mental health. And you just have 1 minute to answer this question. And we're going to start with Chief Cregan, then move on to Sheriff Engram, and then our DA. Sonoma County, like other communities across the state, continues to struggle to meet growing mental health needs. Here in Sonoma County, we have gone from one major crisis to the next, suffering from one devastating wildfire to another, and then suddenly we were faced with a tragic global pandemic that wreaked havoc on all of us. Even before the fire and pandemic, we struggled to keep up with the mental health needs of our community. In response to these growing mental health needs, many communities have created mobile crisis response teams staffed by non-law enforcement professionals to respond quickly to help people in crisis. Today, the County of Sonoma and the cities of Petaluma, Rohnert Park, Cotati, and Santa Rosa have various models of these crisis response teams. The question to you is this: would you support working with county mental health and all Sonoma County law enforcement agencies to develop a single 24/7 countywide mental health crisis response team? And if so, what benefits and challenges do you see in implementing this regional approach? Chief?
Well, it's a great question to start with, and mental health is something that's very passionate to me. I've been on the NAMI Board of Directors here in Sonoma County since 2018, and the Santa Rosa Police Department is leading not only the County of Sonoma, but the state of California in building a civilian mental health response team. So we created in January of 2022 the InterResponse Mental Health Team. We're the only one in the county that has licensed mental health clinicians, a paramedic, and a homeless outreach specialist who are riding together as one multidisciplinary team. The other one in the county that we have, the system navigators, are providing support behind the scenes. For our first year of service, our mental health response team went up to 2,900 calls in lieu of a police officer throughout the city of Santa Rosa. So we're proud about that team. We are working very closely with other allied law enforcement agencies in Sonoma County. I've been a very loud voice in Sonoma County that we need a full mental health team for the County of Sonoma. You should have the same whether you're in Windsor or the River or whether you're in Rohnert Park or Petaluma, that we ought to have that. I think it's the best model. Some of the obstacles, that it's easy to say funding, but quite honestly, the funding's there. We have the county's Measure O. We have Prop 63, which is a tax on millionaires that goes toward mental health. The funding's there. We are working toward this, and the county has talked about waiting for evaluating both the SAFE team in Rohnert Park and Petaluma and the InResponse team in Santa Rosa. We're capturing our metrics together, and the county is looking at expanding that. So I think it's a priority to do that. Right now, we currently have people who call the Santa Rosa 911 system from outside the city of Santa Rosa, ask for InResponse to come to their house, waiting for evaluating both the SAFE team in Rohnert Park and Petaluma and the InResponse team in Santa Rosa. We're capturing our metrics together, and the county is looking at expanding that. So I think it's a priority to do that. Right now, we currently have people who call the Santa Rosa 911 system from outside the city of Santa Rosa.
Though it was something helpful and it was something in the beginning, it doesn't provide the full services that InResponse does. So I think that's something really important, and from my perspective is a little different. Running the jail, unfortunately, we are the largest mental health facility within the county, which is something that we don't want to do, but it's something that we have been forced to do. So in addition to in-response type units, I think there's also a need within this county for full wraparound services to serve those with mental health. You know, I have experiences dealing with the system through things in my family, and there are only a handful of child psychiatrists in this county. There are only a handful of adult psychiatrists in this county, and until we build that infrastructure, we're not going to be able to address the issue. And it's not just the issue of mental health. It transcends that and moves into our homeless issue, what we have. It's our recidivism rate, which we have. So it's something that we should all get together. It's something I'm supportive of and willing to work with anyone to address this issue.
Thank you. Dia Rodriguez.
So all the departments had met with the Board of Supervisors about 2 weeks ago, and we divided up in groups, and we had a group called the Justice Partners. And so Brian Morris was there, John Alden was there, Vanessa from probation was there, and Sheriff Engram wasn't there, but he should have been there. And so we discussed, I've been trying to get this thing going for quite a while. There's a place in Orange County called the Be Well Center. And basically, it's a place where police can drop off people before they drop them off at the jail. And it has a sobering center, it has medical detox, Suboxone for opioid addiction, it has high-grade mental health services, lower-grade mental health services, and then it has juvenile and adult. So everyone's kind of in a safe place. And so our group harassed, so we did speed dating. Every supervisor, I see David Rabbit, came and we harassed them and said, we need this center. We need at least one, if not two of these centers in some place centrally located where everyone in the county can access it. So I'm working on that. I think we might have convinced Supervisor Gore to go on a field trip. Sheriff Engram is invited, even though he wasn't at our meeting.
The sheriff is a busy person. You saw my calendar.
But I'm excited, and Tina Rivera from Behavioral Health is on board, and I think this is something that I will be very vocal about in the next few years.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I also, for the three of you, I want to introduce one very important gentleman in the room, and it's our timekeeper right here, who just so I want to be mindful of our time too, because we have a lot of questions. So if you want, you can move up to the front here so we can see you a little bit better, because sometimes we get a little bit of a glare on the sheets that you're putting up there. So let's transition to a question on diversity and cultural awareness. And you're each going to have a minute for this response as well. We'll start with you, Sheriff Engram, move on to the DA, and then Chief Cregan. Although workforce diversity alone may not resolve all issues related to the fairness and effectiveness of policing, studies show that achieving diversity in law enforcement agencies can increase trust between those agencies and the communities they serve. What specific strategies have you implemented or will implement to increase diversity in your department, including the recruitment, hiring, and retention of Spanish-speaking staff? And in addition to that, should cultural competency training be a required component of your organization's training?
So I'll start with your last question first. We do have cultural competency training within our organization. And when you talk about the diversity of where we are at the Sheriff's Office, that's something that's one of my top priorities. I think that I set the example for diversity within the office. And my short term in office and after being elected, I've spent a lot of time out at different community groups, engaging with all sectors of the community and attempting to lure them to the Sheriff's Office. But I don't think that it's only the responsibility of the Sheriff's Office. That's something we can do. But everyone in this room knows someone, and a lot of people in this room are people of color. So we need your help to help bring people into our organization. That's something really important. It's something that I strive for. We are working on different recruiting models that we're using and be rolling out within the next 6 months or so. Just to remind you, I've been sheriff for 6 weeks, so I got a little bit going on. But we not only need to put our best foot forward, we need you folks here to put your best foot forward. When it comes to bringing more people who speak Spanish, I think that the way that they are paid, it's 90 cents an hour for people who are bilingual in the county. That's not something that I can deal with. That's something that has to be done at the board level through the negotiations, but I think that 90 cents an hour is not sufficient, and we need more in order to lure people here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely, I agree with everything that Sheriff Engram said. In our last hiring round, we hired an entry-level attorney, and in the past, we used to get hundreds of applications. I think we got 7 applications last time. So either we're not paying enough, and I don't think that's what it is. I think that students in law school do not find prosecution attractive. It's not in line with their ideals and their beliefs. So my goal is to meet as many students as I can and to have my attorneys meet as many students as they can to make them want to be prosecutors, that we're not all horrible, evil people. So we are going to be I'm on the advisory board of Roseland Prep. We're going to be participating in Career Day. We have some of our cooler prosecutors doing that. I'm not going. We're bringing our comfort dog. I try to talk to as many students as I can. I'm president of Women in Law. We provide scholarships to female and male students who show a dedication to Sonoma County and to further the lives of others. We've provided many scholarships to the Latinx law students in our community. I've mentored law students, which usually isn't a good idea because I did really bad in law school. But just trying to get the word out. I know my assistant, is Sally Flores here? My assistant recently met with Sally's daughter, who is going to law school. Woohoo! So we're just trying to meet people in the community one-on-one, meet us, see what we do. Come to court. I invite any of you, if you want to come to court with your If any of the students back there want to come to court, give me a call. There's always an interesting trial going on. You'll never believe the stuff that goes on in court. And we want to have a diverse workforce in the DA's office.
Thank you. Chief?
Absolutely. So at Santa Rosa Police Department, we're proud that we do honor that. And we talk about even some of the things such as Spanish pay. For the city of Santa Rosa, specifically for the police department, we pay 3% at all ranks just for being conversational and 5% for being bilingual. And you get that as soon as you start in the training program because we value that. But we didn't stop there. We built in Spanish-speaking classes for our officers. So we're doing it that we have 2 16-hour courses. We bring in some of our bilingual and bicultural officers who lead that because we're trying to build that in the culture. We do other training opportunities, including some online Spanish classes that we're making available to our officers. Just this year, we also launched once a month and in our briefings that we're going over basic Spanish-speaking skills with all of our officers. So all of our officers understand basic commands to make sure that we're able to communicate with everyone in our community. We also are doing so many things of being out in our community or trying to reach more diverse populations in Santa Rosa. And we've been examining what are some of the barriers to application, because that's honestly where we're struggling. And so we've changed some of our testing requirements and the things that we do to be able to drop some of those, and we're seeing increases. Currently, right now, 14% of the Santa Rosa Police Department represents from our Latino population. So we know we have work to do, but we are proud that we have a strong representation, but we know that we still have progress to go over this year. But really, everyone in this room can be partners with us in getting that. That's a shared vision that we both have. So like with so many things at the Santa Rosa Police Department, let's work together toward achieving that goal.
Thank you. Yes, and thank you all for stressing that the importance of that community engagement in making this happen, because it is on all of us to make it happen. Let's transition to school resource officers. This question is for Chief Cregan and Sheriff Engram. And we have a minute and a half each for this question. In 2020, the school resource officer program in Santa Rosa was paused after the murder of George Floyd, and it has not been reinstated. Looking back at the past 3 years, what impacts has this decision made on students in Santa Rosa? And is there a possibility for school resource officers to be back on campuses in Santa Rosa or other Sonoma County schools? And Chief?
Certainly, and I have a unique perspective of that. I live in Santa Rosa. My daughters go to school in Santa Rosa. I'm the chief of the police department here. Quite bluntly, I think it was a mistake to remove the school resource officers from the school program. That wasn't a decision made by the Santa Rosa Police Department. It was a decision made by the Santa Rosa School Board. But quite honestly, I know that there was a lot on their mind, and they did thoughtfully weigh that decision. But with everything in life, it's an opportunity for us. And so I'm looking toward working with our Santa Rosa School Board. I've had numerous conversations with Andrew Turnell, our Santa Rosa School Superintendent, about how do we come back from that, and how do we build an SRO program that meets the needs of our students and our community and addresses some of the concerns that were brought up. So it's something that we're actively engaged in. Even just this week, I was at Andrew Turnell's office meeting about school safety and about how we could be stronger partners from the Santa Rosa the police department in there. I think, quite frankly, it does impact the police department's response times to the schools. It impacts our familiarity with the campuses. It greatly impacts our relationships that we're building with the youth. And just since I stepped into the role of police department, actually 2 who are going to our current academy class, 2 young men, both actually happen to be young Latino men who grew up here in Santa Rosa. And I asked them, why do you want to be a police officer? And both of them said, because of my SRO. One went to Santa Rosa High and one went to Pioneer High. And they said, because I loved working with my SRO and I wanted to be like him or her one day. So that to me is some of the examples of how these SROs build the relationships with our student, build these trusting relationships with the school staff, and quite frankly, make our school campuses across Santa Rosa safer.
Thank you. Sheriff?
The Sheriff's Office is a little different in that we don't have any schools in Santa Rosa. We're in the unincorporated area. But we do have SROs, one at Windsor. The town of Windsor, Windsor High School, decided to keep their SRO, and I think that that's something that was very important. We lost our SRO at El Molino because El Molino no longer exists, and we lost our SRO in Sonoma at Sonoma High, but that was a financial decision. Like Chief Cregan, I live in Santa Rosa. I have 2 daughters in Santa Rosa at the high school, at one of the high schools and one of the middle schools. And what I noticed, especially coming out of COVID and the children returning back to school, is that they had sort of lost the communication or lost the ability to communicate with each other, having been on Zoom for several years. And there were a lot of issues that came out of that. There were a lot of fights, there were a lot of arguments, there was a lot of online bullying. All these things happened. And with my kids being in Santa Rosa schools, you know, there was always a delay for hearing from other parents. There was always a delay for an officer to get there because there were no longer any SROs. So I think that it was done with the best of intentions. I think that there's a way to maybe reimagine and relook at how SROs are in the schools and what their true purpose is, right? Their purpose isn't to take phones away from kids. That's not what the SRO is for. It really is to provide safety and, you know, show that role model to that next kid, maybe the next generation of law enforcement.
Thank you. I'm gonna stay with you too and transition to community policing. This is a very important topic for all of us, and so I'm giving you 2 minutes on this one. Okay, so and Chief, we'll start with you again. It is often said that policing is not something law enforcement does to the community, but rather something law enforcement does with the community. This is community policing. Essentially, community policing is a collaborative effort between law enforcement and the community that identifies problems of crime and safety and involves all elements of the community in the search for solutions to these problems. It is based on the premise that police alone cannot control crime and disorder and promote residents' quality of life. The question is, what procedural or operational changes have your departments made to strengthen community policing, and what specific steps will you take to engage the community to understand what the community's standards and desires for policing are? Chief?
I mean, that's a great question, and that's something that the Santa Rosa Police Department has always excelled at, of making connections with our community. And when you talk about community policing, to me, it's about connecting with our community and working toward what our shared goal and our visions are and working together to accomplish that. And we do that every single day. And one of the things just recently, we met with over 60 cannabis leaders here in Sonoma County about how can we work together to provide safety for some of the robberies and burglaries we've seen at these businesses. We met with our Jewish community at the congregation Shomer Torah over in Bennett Valley, and about some of the things that we're working with them on some hate crimes that we saw here in Santa Rosa. And then also just this week, we met with our Downtown Action Organization over some of the safety issues they're seeing downtown, and we're working with the schools towards some of the school safety. So we do this over and over again, working together about what do they need from the police department and how can we improve. And we want to get some of that critical feedback. The city of Santa Rosa also entered an agreement with Seed Collaborative to examine some of the diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging issues at our police department. And we formed an equitable policing task force. And we didn't just get other officers in there. We got people from the community. And we got Kirsten Lane from NAACP. We got Shantavi Tornado from the Love and Light group here in Santa Rosa. We got Honor Jackson from a local nonprofit, Nubia Padilla. So many people who came in that room to give us like some honest feedback about how we can be doing better as a police department. We came up with 9 different recommendations that we're toward making some improvements in our organization so we can better serve our community and everyone in our community can understand that the police department can be a trusted resource that they can reach out to, but it always that I'm going to be open to hearing that constructive criticism. I give my card to everyone, has my direct desk line, my email. I love to be able to get that feedback, and each one of those we're going to look into how can we get better and how can we grow stronger as a police department.
Thank you. Thank you. Sheriff?
Yeah, I agree that is really important. And since being sheriff, and actually before, I've really made an effort to reach out to members of our community. If anyone asks me to come, I'll show up. If you have a small group, if you have a large group, I will definitely be there. I've done 4 or 5 Rotary groups. I've done schools. I've been just about everywhere. In addition to that, we created an organization called CREED within the sheriff's office. The community group is structured from 20 different people throughout our community, and I think there's a few CREED people here, if you can raise your hands. Back there. So what they do is they meet with us on a quarterly basis. We started this last year. We met pretty much every month, but what we've done to them is show them what the sheriff's office is about and said, hey, what do you think you want to change? What do you think the community is looking for? Whether it be a policy, whether it be a procedure, and we've turned the reins over to them and to let them go through our policies to determine what we can do and if we can make changes in certain areas. So I think it's important to engage with the community, see what they think, and get their ideas. What I've also committed to is doing town halls throughout the county. Our first town hall is next Thursday at our sheriff's office, so they can come in and talk to me and talk to my leadership team and learn about the sheriff's office and ask me questions directly. So again, if anyone has any group that they would like me to speak to, I'm more than happy to. That's why I can't show up to everything, Carla, because my calendar is pretty full. But that's what this job is. I think that it's really important. I was elected by the people to represent the sheriff's office and bring law enforcement to them in the way that they would like it, and that's what I'm committed to doing.
Thank you, Sheriff. Let's go back to, this is for all three of you, and we're going to talk about measuring success. So you all have experience within your own organizations in addressing a variety of important community issues, including diversity, equity, racial disparity, community outreach, and community policing. You may also be working to develop your own specific strategies and goals to make improvements. How will you measure your success, and how will you engage the community in helping to assess your efforts? We'll start with you, Madam DA.
Oh, thank you. I see, so this question calls for metrics. I see there being intangible metrics and tangible metrics. The tangible metrics are, one example is data. We have a new law that says in 2027 our office needs to provide statistics and data about arrests that are received by our office, how we file those cases, how we prosecute those cases, and how we sentence them. We're going to be keeping data on race, gender, age, and providing this on our computer website. We're doing this sooner than 2027. I hope that we're going to be doing it this year, and we're in talks with a statistician to help us get our data up on the computer. So look for that on the DA's website. We'll issue a press release when our dashboards are up. But I think that'll hold everyone accountable, including the police and how they're arresting people, who they're arresting, where they're arresting them, what race they are, what gender or gender identity they are. I think it'll help us to see how we're filing cases, handling them. I know our public defender is anxious for us to get this project going. We have the Racial Justice Act, which requires prosecutors and judges to really, the PD can challenge any convictions that they feel are racially unjust. So data is one of the tangibles. Another tangible is community outreach. I'm really looking forward to working with the schools. So anyone from a school board here, please let me know. I want to get back in the schools. We stopped this during COVID, but talk about fentanyl. Talk about how 4 out of every 10 pills could be probably have a fatal dose of fentanyl in them if you get them over the internet. Talk about guns, gun violence, gun safety. What does it look like when a bullet enters a person's body? What kind of damage does it do? Have a doctor show and explain that. Make these guns real for the kids, because I don't know if they understand how deadly they really are, or they don't care. So just getting back in the school, so measuring the number of visits that we do to a school would be great. So once again, anyone, if you want us to come out and talk. And the third topic I want to get to the schools is computer safety and internet safety. We've seen human trafficking, which is started by someone texting someone on their phone or joining their social media chat. Intangible, Herman said that people don't trust law enforcement and don't want to come to law enforcement because they don't trust us. The intangible is if people start trusting us, start cooperating with police, start talking to police when they witness crimes, and start coming to court, that would be something very important for me to see. If someone who's a victim of domestic violence can trust the Family Justice Center, trust the DA's office, trust the police who are investigating that crime, and hold their abuser accountable, that to me would be progress. Same for sex assault victims and elder abuse victims. So seeing more relationships, community relationships and trust between everyone in the law enforcement side, the DA side, and the community side would make me very happy.
Thank you. Chief?
So that one for us, one of the things I already talked about is our equitable policing task force, and we have those 9 recommendations. Those are publicly out there, like that we presented them to our Santa Rosa City Council, and we're working. We have each one of those. We have measurables and timelines about some of the improvements we're going to work, and some of those include diversity, some of those include our recruitment, some of those include just our treatment out in the community. So look at those 9, and we have them on the Santa Rosa Police Department's website as well. We have what we call Change for the Better. If you go to the Santa Rosa Police Department, and we talk about why we are different at the Santa Rosa Police Department from agencies across the country and even here locally in the Bay Area, and some of the things that we've done to get some of the feedback that we heard through the George Floyd, and that was a moment of reckoning for the city of Santa Rosa. We learned lessons, and quite frankly, the Santa Rosa Police Department made mistakes, and we've learned from those, and those lay heavy on my shoulders to make sure that we don't repeat some of those mistakes, that we learn from those, and that we meet the needs of our community here. Some of the things that we're doing too is we're very data focused at the Santa Rosa Police Department, and certainly under the leadership of our city manager, Marquisha Smith. So we're working toward putting public-facing dashboards of every case that our police auditor, we have an independent police auditor, the city of Santa Rosa, so every case that they're reviewing. The same thing with our diversity within our police department and throughout the city of Santa Rosa. Those are some of the metrics that we're trying to build and have that complete transparency to our community. And that's the same thing on our Change for the Better website. It has every single policy of the Santa Rosa Police Department is there for the public to review, to provide feedback on. We created a quarterly City Council Public Safety Subcommittee that I join, and we meet with 3 of our City Council leaders, and we address any concern related to public safety. And there's an open forum where people can ask questions, can be able to look for the transparency of our police department, and we are going to continue to strive that in the years to come.
Thank you. Sheriff.
You know, for us, there are a lot of things that I'm looking at and changing within our organization, whether that's changing our website so it can be more accessible to people and we can be more transparent in the number of arrests we have, the number of complaints we have, how we've dealt with those complaints. Those are things that are important. And for me, one of the first things I did when I took office, when it comes to the diversity piece, was I had our HR folks take a snapshot of where we are, what are the demographics of the office are today, and then 6 months in, same snapshot, and then a year in to see if we were really going where I want us to go. The sheriff's office as a whole, we have a lot of vacancies within our organization, and though it is bad operationally, it does give us a chance to get a department to get the department to look the way that we want it to look. And when we talk about looking the way that we want it to look, I think I want to stress that when I talk about diversity, yes, I'm talking about people of color, but I'm also talking about diversity of thought, because diversity of thought in law enforcement is something that is really important. We can't all have groupthink. Whenever I sit in a room with my staff and I'm talking and they all agree with me, I did something wrong. I never want everyone to sit there and all agree with me. Maybe what I'm saying is right, and we'll get there, but I always want someone to push back because I know that I'm not always right, and I don't want people there. So those are the things that I'm looking forward to and continuing to serving the people of Sonoma County.
Thank you. And I do appreciate too your comments about having dashboards and snapshots as well, because we can't wait 2-3 years down the road to see what happened, right? So how do we as a community know real time how we're making progress as a community? So thank you for that. District Attorney Rodriguez, this question is for you. This is on crime and punishment. 2 minutes for this answer. A common concern is that law enforcement officers often make arrests that never lead to formal charges or prosecution. Yet we must also do more to address criminal justice reforms and seek alternatives to incarceration. How will you work with our Sonoma County law enforcement agencies to ensure officers only make arrests for crimes that are likely to be charged and prosecuted?
So, let me make sure I got it. First of all, any officers who complain that we're not filing their cases are whiners, so I'll say that. The district attorney is the top law enforcement official in Sonoma County. That's government code. So that means we're the ones that receive police reports from 13 agencies around the county, and we decide whether or not to file criminal charges. I ran some stats. Last year we got 14,367 referrals from all the agencies. We filed 8,419 of those. We rejected 5,544. Just remember that when police arrest someone, their burden of proof or their legal standard is probable cause. That means more likely than not. When we file a case, we have to consider, number one, are the facts trustworthy? Is there sufficient evidence to file this case? And number two, are the legal requirements of that law met? And number three, are there any legal defenses? It's a much higher burden. When we file a case, we have to think, is this case worth dragging a panel of 100 to 200 jurors here and using up 2 weeks of their life, sometimes 1 week of their life? Do we want to file this case against a homeless person who spilled gasoline into the Santa Rosa Creek, knowing that many people, at least 12 jurors and 2 alternates, will be impacted by that? So we have to consider a number of things. Is the victim cooperative or uncooperative? Is there alternative justice? We're trying to utilize restorative resources, diversion. We're trying not to file these cases at all, and I'm trying to find more meaningful drug addiction programs for our pre-filing cases. So, we have to consider a wide range of what should we file, how can we treat this case better, and do we really want to drag this person who's been arrested into the criminal justice system and subject them to fines and fees, incarceration, which could infect their families? So we have to consider all these things. So I guess to answer the question, I wouldn't tell the police how to gather evidence or how to do their jobs. I just hope they understand that we have to consider a lot more than probable cause when filing a case.
Thank you very much. This next question will be for all of you, and we're going to focus on sideshows. And we'll have 1 minute each for this response. And Chief Cregan, you'll start, and we'll go to the sheriff and then the DA. Sideshows have been common in the Bay Area for decades, and we have seen a significant increase in Sonoma County over the past 2 years. Besides the dangerous car stunts, car shows have also been associated with other criminal activity like vandalism, shootings, illegal firearm seizures, hit and runs, and in some communities, homicides. How are you working with other law enforcement agencies to address these sideshows, and what can the community do to help you?
So that's a big one for the city of Santa Rosa, is the sideshows. And over 2021 and 2022, we saw hundreds of sideshow participants coming to Santa Rosa, really involving a lot of danger in our cities, and I made it a priority as chief. And I'm proud to say the Santa Rosa Police Department is leading the way for the County of Sonoma in our sideshow response. Some of the things we did is we created a Sonoma County sideshow protocol. All the chiefs in Sonoma County and the sheriff came together and looked at how can we work more collectively as a group and address. So if there's a sideshow in Santa Rosa, we have resources from all over Sonoma County coming to that. We'll go to the same out in the county or to Petaluma or wherever it may be. The city of Santa Rosa was also the first to pass in the county of Sonoma a sideshow ordinance, and ours is very comprehensive. We met with agencies all over the Bay Area, and now it's a misdemeanor to be a sideshow driver, a passenger, an active spectator, or the promoter organizer. We've also are going after cases after these promoter organizers, showing that we're not going to tolerate it here in the city of Santa Rosa. We also are working with our community. So we work with our Office of Community Engagement, and we did community listening sessions about what are some of the impacts and what are some of the other alternatives for our youth in our community to be involved in. And we continue to work with the Santa Rosa Violence Prevention Partnership to seek out some of those opportunities, but we've made it very clear. We've towed over 115 vehicles for 30 days in the city of Santa Rosa that we've impounded, saying that we're actively involved in sideshows in our community. So we're going to continue to do that, and and we've seen them greatly decrease in the city of Santa Rosa, and all the chiefs and the sheriffs are committed toward continuing that throughout our county.
Thank you. Sheriff?
I want to thank Chief Cregan for leading the way on that. The Sheriff's Office doesn't do traffic in the unincorporated areas. That's the purview of the CHP. But we do have 2 contract cities that I want to point out. Chief Roche, who went and had a sideshow ordinance approved in the town of Windsor. What I've done as sheriff is approach our county council and mirroring Chief Cregan's sideshow ordinance, because the sideshows don't respect our boundaries. So what I'm working on is getting it so the sideshow ordinance is also effective in the county, so they don't leave Santa Rosa or Windsor or any other city and end up in the county, and we can't do the same things that we could do in the city of Santa Rosa. So again, thanks Chief Cregan for leading the way on that. Thank you for his template for the sideshow ordinance. And so the goal of all the chiefs, I think, is to get Sonoma County all on the same page, so we're able to address these as a county and hopefully make sure that they don't come back here.
Thank you. D.A. Rodriguez, comments on sideshows?
I applaud the police chiefs and the sheriff for what they're doing. I've talked to community members. One woman in Roseland lives on this corner where there were several sideshows, and she told me how terrifying it is to hear that and experience it, and how she feels like a prisoner in her own home. And it was sad. It was really sad. So, I applaud the efforts. I don't like the crimes, the shootings that happen as a result of them. We don't need that. I know that our job is to review any reports that come to our office and decide whether we can prove beyond a reasonable doubt. I think conspiracy to commit vandalism and conspiracy to commit environmental crimes are how we're receiving them. So I'll make that decision when any investigation is complete and given to our office.
Thank you. I want to remind all of you in the audience that you have these cards on your tables. So if you have questions after I'm done, we're going to be taking some audience questions as well. You can also use a QR code that's at your table. So we have about 10 minutes left with this portion, so please get your questions into us. Let's transition to another very important topic, which is gun violence. And you're going to have a minute and a half to answer these questions. And Sheriff, we'll start with you, and then we'll move on to Chief Cregan, then to our DA. Gun violence continues to plague communities across the country, and Sonoma County is no exception. We applaud the efforts of local law enforcement in taking illegal firearms off the street, including ghost guns and illegal assault rifles. Gun violence impacts everyone in our community, and we must work together to find solutions. Last year, gun buyback events in Petaluma and Santa Rosa netted over 500 firearms, including 10 assault rifles and 7 3D printed guns. Last month, the Petaluma City Council passed an ordinance requiring that all firearms in homes be stored in a locked container or dismantled to help reduce the potential for gun-related violence and accidents. How will you work with the other Sonoma County law enforcement agencies to lead community efforts to reduce gun violence, and what can the community do to help stop gun violence?
Yeah, so the Chiefs Association, we meet once a month and get together and talk about a lot of these issues. From organization to organization, things look a little bit different. In your more urban settings, so to speak, in Santa Rosa, it's a little bit different than my jurisdiction of the sheriff's office. But typically criminals don't respect jurisdictional boundaries. So what we can do is share intelligence of the people that we know things are happening. So, for example, Santa Rosa may be doing an investigation, and they may learn something of someone who's in the county. They pass that information over to us, and then we take over that investigation. The reality is that last year was the most dangerous year we've had in Sonoma County in regards to homicide, 20. And those things are not just wrapped into one thing; they're wrapped into the drug trade. We had over 70 fentanyl deaths last year, which is out. It's amazing. So all of these things are wrapped in. They're very complex issues to work with, but I think that all the chiefs have a very, very good working relationship. We all text chains, we're getting together, we're talking, and we're trying to figure out a way to solve all of these problems for the county together.
Thank you. Chief?
Yeah, and as Sheriff Engram said, it was a violent year. 12 of those 20 homicides occurred within the city of Santa Rosa. It was actually the most homicides ever recorded in the history of Santa Rosa last year. So that's a stat that I don't want us to continue to have. What we're doing is proactively working with our team. So our officers in 2022 seized 239 illegal firearms off the streets of Santa Rosa. 67 of those are these personally manufactured weapons known as ghost guns, which are unserialized weapons. So I'm proud of our officers proactively going out there, making good decisions and be able to get some of these illegal guns off the streets of Santa Rosa. But what I'm committed, I spent 7 years in our gang crimes team, and I learned so many things that we're not going to arrest our way out of our problem. So this is one of the things, and a line that I stole from Ernesto that I use all the time. Like, it's a community-wide issue, and it's going to respond a community-wide response is what it's going to take. So we all need to come together. We need to start looking about some of the root causes. Why are 14-year-old kids in Santa Rosa carrying ghost guns with 30-round magazines? Like, what are we doing? So we have to start working so they understand the dangers of that. And DA Rodriguez talked about doing the school program. I think that's an amazing idea to do that, and so they understand some of the consequences. Working with parents so they understand when their kids are watching these YouTube videos and putting these plastic guns together, like, what are some of the consequences that come with that, and some of the poor decisions they make out in their community that maybe make them facing felony charges for the death of another young person here in Sonoma County, or even a shooting. So we need to work together. I'm proud of our partnership with the Santa Rosa Violence Prevention Partnership, and as we're continue to look some of these root causes and start working to proactively get the guns off the streets of Santa Rosa.
Thank you, Chief. DA Rodriguez, I think you have some specific ideas on this topic as well.
Well, I'm not supposed to answer this question. Are you giving me
No,
permission?
I'm giving you permission to
Okay.
answer this question.
So I was telling Ernesto, I read this article in the New York Times this morning, and I attend the Santa Rosa Violence Prevention Council. It's amazing. Chief Cregan does an amazing job. But they did a study, and they showed that, going from city to city, about 20% of the population is responsible for about 80% of the shootings. And they could, in each city, identify who the kids were with the guns. And it's usually kids, usually age 17 with guns. I'm sure Sheriff Engram and Chief Cregan could probably have their detectives give the list of who in Santa Rosa or who in the county they think are the ones with the guns. So I am going to forward that article to Ernesto and my esteemed panelists and the rest of the violence partnership, because I think we need to start doing that. I just want everyone to know that the sentencing laws have changed so drastically that I believe our state sentencing laws are absolutely insufficient to address gun possession charges. And I'm concerned that the legislature is going to reduce the punishments for use of gun charges. I'm keeping an eye on it. They've tried to do it last year and it failed. They're going to try again. If anyone uses a gun committing a violent crime, they need to go to prison for a long time, and that's how I feel. So just keep up on your state legislature. Be persistent with your state assemblymen. Sorry, Will Tosconi. And just be vocal, because we have to keep an eye on what the legislature's doing. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we're getting close on time, but I want to try to squeeze in 2 more questions. So this one's for the chief and the sheriff. Let's talk about taking care of your officers and deputies. Our law enforcement officers are often exposed to trauma when responding to high-risk situations, causing significant stress on them and their families. What programs and services are you offering to officers, deputies, and their families to help them cope with the stress and trauma of the job? And what other programs would you like to implement? And finally, what can we do to support our officers and deputies?
Who are we starting with?
Go ahead.
That's such a great one, and that's important to me. And actually, as chief, I established 8 priorities that we're focusing on in the police department, and one of our biggest ones is officer wellness. And it's not just officer wellness, but it's staff wellness. It's for our dispatchers as well. And it's important to understand those 12 homicides in Santa Rosa, an officer's responded there. Our field evidence techs processed those bloody scenes. But it's not just the homicides. We had 8 fatal collisions, and we had 432 shootings in the city of Santa Rosa. That due to our amazing medical equipment that we have here and our providers in Sonoma County, everyone survived those shootings. So that builds up a lot of trauma with our staff, and the wildfires and so many other things. So we built in a host of things that we work with Sonoma County Resiliency First, and we send officers to their trauma retreat. We have West Coast Trauma as well as another one we do. We're really proud of our Santa Rosa City Council approved a 40-hour-a-week contract with a wellness individual who's contracted, who comes in and works with our officers, providing both physical and mental health to be able to make sure that they're out there in their community doing the best job they can do. And study after study shows that if you have the mental health support that you need, you do a better job serving our community. You use less force, you make better decisions. So we're having that upstream investment of working with our officers so they feel like they're in the right headspace before they head out into the streets of Santa Rosa. So something that we're really committed to. Actually, just yesterday I met with a team of our employee assistant providers, of our therapists here in Santa Rosa, to talk about what are some of the themes, what are some of the concerns that they're seeing with our officers, and the things that I could be doing better as the chief of police to provide them support that they need. We're going to do a program that we've never had at the police department, that we're going to have EAP office hours. We're bringing the EAP providers to them. So they're going to come to our staff briefings to build familiarity with them. They're going to have an office there at our police station where officers can contact them. We also built a new program this year called a crisis response team, that after these critical incidents, we have peer support members who are knowledgeable with our officers, who are coming out immediately to check on them, provide resources, but not just to the officers, to the 911 dispatcher who answered that traumatic call, and to our field evidence technicians who are civilian members who process those bloody crime scenes. So we're invested at every level, but we want to hear more from so many experts in this room about other things that are open in Sonoma County and how we can enhance those services for our team.
Thank you. Sheriff?
Yeah. So I just want to stress that it's not one traumatic incident for law enforcement. There's been studies that have shown that the average person has 3 traumatic incidents in their life. Law enforcement, 180. And, you kind of equate that to, a backpack and someone piling rocks in your backpack. And that's what, I didn't make that up. I got that from someone, so I don't think that I'm smart. But just imagine someone carrying that backpack and it's just trauma after trauma after trauma. A kid that's not taken care of, a death, a car accident, an officer-involved shooting. So all these things build up over time. And historically, to be honest, law enforcement has not been done very well with handling that. And so what you would see is, someone sort of, that backpack is full, and, I think my other panelists and moderator could attest to it. Now they have a back injury, they have a shoulder injury. I think that we're doing a lot better in recognizing that, and I think that officers and deputies are better at coming out and saying that I have an issue. I'm doing a lot of the same things that Chief Cregan is doing, First Resiliency, West Coast Trauma Retreat. We've revamped our peer support program. We are looking at a program that ties in to our computer-aided dispatch system. So if a deputy or a dispatcher is involved in one of these triggering type calls, so a child death, a horrific accident, that this system sort of pings the peer support team and says, hey, check in with this person. Check in with them and see how they're doing. And so we're hoping to look at these sort of creative ways to help deal with this, because what I've seen, not only as a new sheriff, but my time in the administration, is that our injuries have gone from knees, shoulders, and necks to PTSD-related injuries, and that's where the trend is going. And I think that that's something that we need to stop.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question, an important question. This one is on racial disparities, and this is for all of you. You have a minute and a half. Sheriff, we'll start with you. We'll move to the chief and then DA Rodriguez. The California Racial and Identity Profiling Advisory Board, or RIPA, was created for the purpose of eliminating racial and identity profiling and improving diversity, racial, and identity sensitivity in law enforcement. RIPA recently issued its 2023 report based on data from 2021. The data shows that Sonoma County law enforcement agencies, other than CHP, made over 17,000 stops in 2021, with 29% made by Santa Rosa Police and 20% by Sheriff's Department in its contracting offices. The data shows that Black and Hispanic people and people with perceived mental health disabilities are stopped more often, detained more often, and searched more often, despite the lack of correlation between their higher rates of being stopped and higher rates of being cited or arrested. Research shows that people of color were charged at higher rates and received harsher punishment and sentences. How will you use this data and research to work together to improve these outcomes?
So I think that it's important to add context to this specific RIPA report, and that it is incomplete. It's 6 months worth of data. We, as the Chiefs Association within the county, decided that we would start 6 months early. So you can't really get a true picture of what it looks like in Sonoma County. The analogy I would give is you get to the end of the year, you look at your checking account and you go from July until December, and you say, okay, I'm going to build a budget for the following year based on my spending from the past year. Well, you can't do that because you're missing from January to June. It can give you some idea of some of the things you can do. You have constants, right? You have your rent, you have your car payment, you have all these things, but it can't give you and really dial down into what you need to do and how you need to do it. I think what's more important is not this report, but the reports that's coming out in the next several months that gives us a true picture of a full year worth of data. I think that this data that we have is a good starting off point, but it only gives us an idea, not a true depiction of where we are. And just sort of to illustrate what they did at RIPA was they took the 6 months of data and then they created this mathematical computation to kind of come out with the information that they release. So as I said, I think that it's a good starting point. It's a good place for us to talk about, but I think the bigger data will be once we get that full report for that full year and we can have those conversations. Do I have any doubt that that the information will show something similar to this? I think it'll probably be pretty close, which is why I say it's a good idea, but I would like to really have the real data in there to determine what we need to do to move forward to kind of correct these inequities.
Thank you very much, Chief.
It's an important report for us, and so we've been examining it, myself and my command staff team, and it's important. You see a lot of like Facebook narrative comparing like census tract data and then to the stops. It's a little disingenuous to do that. We have people from all over the Bay Area, and it's been well documented for the sideshow specifically that a diverse population from all over the Bay Area is coming to Santa Rosa. They get stopped here in Santa Rosa, but also it's important for us to look at that data and say like, wow, there are some things that we need to examine on how can we be internally making some changes. We didn't wait for the RIPA report to come out to develop our own implicit bias course that we developed, and Herman G. mentioned that. We invited him and so many other key community leaders to be a part of helping us develop that course. So we were talking to some of every single one of our sworn officers went through that, and we talked about some of the unconscious or implicit bias that are just exist in human nature, but we want to start making it aware, and we want to start making it in the culture of our organization that everyone understands that, and that we're doing everything we can to reduce some of those biases by our police officers. I'm proud by the Santa Rosa Police Department and the decisions they make, but at the same time as a leader, it's so important to be able to reflect upon, are there internal changes that we could be making to make sure that those don't exist and there aren't any systemic racism or any other issues in the Santa Rosa Police Department or anywhere here in Sonoma County.
Thank you. Don't forget your cards if you have a question. I think we have a little bit of time left here. This question is from the audience for DA Rodriguez. 90 seconds on this answer.
Wait, but I didn't answer the last one.
Oh, my apologies. My apologies. I'm rushing everybody along.
Jeez. I just wanted to point out, so REPA, which stands for Racial and Identity Profiling Act, is intended to kind of point out the inequities for people of all races and LGBTQIA plus. Did I get that? And they're interesting. It's interesting. And it also addresses more stops for people who are mentally ill. The problem is, and I just want you all to know this because the people who came to this event are smart and you guys read the paper, police officers aren't allowed to ask what a person's race is or what their sexual orientation or gender identity is. All this is based on the officer's perceived opinion of that. So how this affects me as the DA, well, I want to know how we're getting cases from the police, who's getting arrested, who's getting pulled over. But all of our data that we're going to have is based on perception because officers are not allowed to ask these questions. They actually think that Latinos are underrepresented, like in the prison and jail stats. They think that there's actually more Latinos. When we hear about overpopulation or disproportionate populations in the jails and prisons, those numbers are also skewed. But just letting you know that although REPA is great and the reasons behind it are great, I think it's fatally flawed because all this data is based on an officer's perception, and I can't imagine myself trying to make those opinions on any of those, on gender, identity, etc. So thanks.
Thank you.
And,
Yes,
sorry,
and
if I
thank you for pointing that. I'm sorry, sure, go ahead.
If I could add one thing, DA Rodriguez talked about gun crime and how 20% of the gun crime are created by the people, and I think that that's something important to talk about when you talk about RIPA and reporting, because it's not it's an individual data set every time. So for example, if I'm a problem for the Santa Rosa Police Department and they contact me on Monday, and then I continue to be a problem with the Santa Rosa Police Department and they contact me on Friday, that's 2 stops for an African American male. It doesn't spread it out over it doesn't spread it out and say this is one person. It says that Santa Rosa's made 2 stops on 2 African American males. So that's also something that you need to take into account. And I think RIPA is doing that. And if you read the 600-page report, they are looking at different ways to make it more accurate. And I think that as time goes and they make these subtle changes in how they're reporting, that it will really become a true reflection of where we are, which is a better tool for us to use.
Thank you. Yes, and thank you for making those distinctions. Those are very important because, oftentimes we have these new systems that come into place, and it takes a while for them to really settle down where we start getting the information that we need and the information that we can use to make changes. So thank you for that. DA, this question relates to immigration. It's directed to you. So many Latina women who are here undocumented do not report or trust to report domestic abuse or other crimes. What policies are being initiated and promoted to the community to help ensure a report doesn't equal deportation?
Say that one more time. I want to make sure I'm talking about victims of crime.
Yeah, yes, it's victims of crime.
Okay.
Yes, we're reporting, yes.
So the DA's office is actively working with local community service providers. I think I saw Marcy Flores from Corazon. We work with, we have the Family Justice Center that works with the YWCA, Verity. I see Chris Castillo here from Verity, and other organizations to provide one-on-one victim services. Tatiana Lopez is our Victim Services Division Director. She's here today. And we try to reach out to victims as soon as we get a police report, let them know what services are available to them. We don't have to file a case for them to be eligible for services. And we provide them trauma counseling, restitution if warranted, etc. So we're really trying to reach out to each individual victim as soon as we learn about them. I'm trying to work with Corazon. I'm trying to go out to events and make people feel comfortable. We don't care if you have papers or not. So maybe I need to put that on the front of my website, which I'm working on. But seriously, I know that people are really afraid about even coming to court because there may be an ICE sweep and it's tragic. But the DA's office does not care about paperwork. We want victims of crimes to have their abusers held accountable, and we'll do whatever we have to do to make them feel comfortable.
Yes, thank you.
Carla, do you want to talk about the U visa?
About what?
U visa?
Oh.
The U visa?
Thank you,
You're welcome.
Sheriff Engram, for reminding me of a good talking point that I could have utilized.
Next time, sign me in at that meeting.
And we do offer victims of crime assistance with getting U visa applications. So if someone is a victim of an enumerated crime, which is pretty broad, assault, domestic violence, elder abuse, we can help them be here legally. And we do disclose it to the defense because we have a duty to disclose any exculpatory information to the defense. So we'll let them know. It's just they'll argue that the victim's biased and they're just trying to get citizenship. But that is something that is available, and we have 2 attorneys assigned to handling those applications.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eddie.
And that goes back to the importance of the community outreach and engagement on a regular basis that continue to educate people about what we do and don't do, right?
I've heard, and I know that we're running out of time, I have heard that our indigenous community is suffering, that domestic violence is an issue there. I'm trying to find a translator. I mean, there's 260 indigenous languages in Sonoma County. So I know I'm not going to find 260 indigenous translators, but we're working on more resources. We're working on making the Family Justice Center a place where everyone feels welcome. So it's hard, but hopefully if I'm just out there enough and Tatiana's out there enough and her advocates are out there enough, we'll make a difference.
Good. Are we doing okay on time? I'm good? Yeah, okay, thank you. Here's one more question. This will be for each of you, 90 seconds. Sonoma County has an estimated 3,000 unhoused residents. What role do your departments have in addressing this problem? And how will you balance community safety issues with respect for members of our community? With respect for homeless members of our community. Chief?
That's a tough one, and as with so many topics that we see, the area of homelessness is so like polar that for every time that we go out to like a homeless operation, I get about 25 emails that say like, you lazy, incompetent cops, why did it take you so long? And another 25 like, you heartless, I cannot believe you're doing this. So it's so difficult. But what we're doing at the Santa Rosa Police Department is we continue to lead with compassion. Every one of our homeless operations that we go on, we're offering services. We have close connections with our homeless outreach services team from Catholic Charities. We have beds available to Sam Jones. We work to get people in the placement at the Palms Inn and a host of other resources. The city of Santa Rosa invested in a safe parking program that we have 55 RVs there, and we're working toward opening another one in the coming months or year. So we work toward offering some of those solutions. But at the same time, who the police department are dealing with specifically, and this doesn't represent all the homeless community across Santa Rosa, but who the police department deal are oftentimes service resistant, of individuals who are living on the streets and they're resistant to those services. And what I've given clear direction to our staff that we're going to offer services, but if they're service resistant and they're committing crimes on the streets of Santa Rosa, that there's going to be accountability for that. And we have a right to do that and really an obligation to do that for our community, for our business leaders, for our homes, for our residents who are experiencing some of that. We saw like specifically just like in the South Park community in Santa Rosa, where we had 14 RVs parked directly in front of residences. They had black water and other waste that were leaking into our storm drains. We had dogs that were getting loose attacking residents. We had needles left in the area. We have an obligation to act on that for the community there in South Park, and so we did. And so we've been towing some of these RVs, but our goal is to get every one of those occupants into housing, into services, and to provide them the support that they need.
Thank you. Sure.
Yeah. Again, it's difficult. We face a lot of the same problems and a lot of the same issues. The county has done a lot. There is an encampment that was put out at Los Guillicos. The county has purchased several hotels. In dealing with individuals, and I think that this really comes back to one of the things that I talked about earlier today, was a lot of the homeless and the homelessness issue that we're dealing with, and the reason why people are resistant to services is because of mental health, drugs, or maybe a combination of both. There are some people who are homeless by circumstance. They lost their job, their house burned in the fire, but the vast majority of the homeless population are people who are facing these challenges. And until we have the ability to address these challenges, we're going to continue to have this issue. Sort of an anecdotal story was when we cleared off Joe Redondo Trail. There was a person that was given services. They were put in the Palms, and 3 days later they were found at another homeless encampment. And we thought that they were still at the Palms. The room in the Palms was filled with their stuff, but they were back out on the street again. So when Chief Cregan talks about people who are resistant, that is something that's real. I'm hoping that the DA can get care court moving, and I think that would help address some of the issues. But it's really difficult to help people who don't want to be helped. So all you can deal with is those who want help, and then deal with the criminality of those who don't want help.
Thank you. And for DA Rodriguez, I think in your response, can you talk a little bit about care court? That was one of my questions, yeah. But maybe you can elaborate, because I know all 58 counties have 2 years to get into this, so maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
So Governor Newsom signed into law care court, which is a civil commitment process. So, but right now you can 5150 someone if they're a danger to themselves or others. It's a pretty high standard, and only certain people, It's a process. So Newsom passed this law with that goal of providing help for, he estimated there's about 7,000 people in the state of California that might be eligible for care court. And so it expands people who can refer people to care court to family members, EMTs, first responders. A wide variety of people can file a petition and say this person needs care court. It applies to people with schizophrenia. addressing the fact that we now have a once-a-month injectable antipsychotic medicine that we didn't have when 5150 laws were created. So we're aware that there are amazing benefits to this once-a-month antipsychotic shot. You just have to get people to want to take that. It's voluntary. So I have grave concerns about, the effectiveness of Care Court, but I'm very happy that we have Care Court because it gives us another tool in the criminal justice system with our defendants who are incompetent, and their cases are right now getting dismissed under the law. So I'm happy that we have another outlet. I believe our courts are going to have it in their probate division because that's where they have their LPS conservatorships. It kind of makes sense for the judges to keep it there. Behavioral health is scrambling to kind of figure out what services will be part of a person's Care Court plan. And my Chief Deputy, Matt Henning, is going to figure it all out for me and give me a recommendation. But I'm anxious that we get it going, that we utilize it in conjunction with some more mental health, drug, alcohol, opioid treatment programs.
Thank you. Yeah, that's something that's going to be evolving over time, of course.
Exactly.
So I think it's important for the community to watch for that and see how that continues to evolve for us here in Sonoma County. I'll check in with my team to see how I'm doing on my time. One more? Okay, we have time for one more.
And just really quick.
Yes, go ahead.
Spread the word about Care Court because we get, John knows this because he's on the board on NAMI, but so many family members are at their wits' end because they have a mentally ill son or daughter and they don't know what to do. So it's a family member can now petition, and we just need to get that word out so people don't feel so helpless the way they have been for years.
Okay, thank you. So I think this is our last question, 60 seconds, and you can all take a stab at this. Has to do with diversity. There are a lot of conversations and discussions around diversity in law enforcement agencies. Often diversity is associated with outward physical characteristics. Can you talk about the value that lived experience and diversity that is not or may not be outwardly observed by physical attributes such as those who identify as GLBTQIA+, or where people are raised, et cetera? Make sense? A little bit? Okay, go ahead, Chief.
I think that's an important one, and Sheriff Engram kind of talked about that at one of his earlier responses about like the diversity of thought. It's not just about our skin color, our race and gender and things like that, and that's what we try to build, like not only in our command staff team at the police department, but in so many areas. We were one of the first 100 agencies in the United States to sign the 30 by 30 pledge, and that was talking about that we, by 2030, that we wanted 30% of our police academies to be represented by female trainees. But it's not just stops with there. We also are really proud of our LGBTQ community here at the Santa Rosa Police Department. We highlight that, we build that. We have the big Pride Festival and Parade every year in June. Actually, it's June 3rd of this is coming. We bring out all of our team. I'm there every year, and it's a big moment for us. And so we like to be able to celebrate the diversity across our department, not just with some of the bigger things that you may think. But I think that's something that it's important for us to continue, and we built in. So one of the things is we had some organizations from our LGBT community come in and speak with all of our supervisors, and we were talking about some of the cultural sensitivities and about how we make, maybe some people aren't as open in the police department as others are, and how our supervisors can make sure they're meeting their needs, not only internally in the police department, but actually externally out in our community. And we're trying to do that through the lenses of so many different areas of diversity in our police department and trying to build that culture of belonging and security in our own police department. Because if you can't even feel secure in our own police department, how can we expect our community members who are interacting with our officers? So it's something that we're making a priority.
Thank you. Sheriff?
I agree, and I did talk about a little bit earlier about that diversity of thought, and being one of the 2% in Sonoma County, I think that it's really important to show that diversity, outward diversity, but inward diversity as well. My personal experience is that I'm not from Sonoma County. I've been here 20 years, but this isn't where I'm from. And I lived in 5 different states before the age of 18. So from down south to the Midwest and California. So I have a wide range of experiences, and it's really formed the person who I am today. And I think that I think a little bit differently than some of the other people that I work with, but I think that that's important. And I'd like to have a lot of more people who think a little bit differently, because if you get all of these different thinking people with different ideas coming to the table, then that's when you're really going to get your best result, and that's where you're going to get your best answer. So that's when part of my recruiting is looking at that and bringing people in who have those different thoughts, and bring them into the agency and help us move forward.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Dia Rodriguez, some comments on that?
So we have a fairly diverse office. I'd like it to be more diverse, but we do come together with ping pong tournaments and other fun activities. But I am trying to organize a group of community members to meet with quarterly. I'm looking for as diverse a group as I can. If anyone is interested in meeting with me quarterly to discuss what's happening in your neighborhood, what you see happening with the police, what you see happening at your kids' schools, call the DA's office and let me know. So that's all I have as a pitch to join my group. Thank you.
I'll make sure to do that.
Thank you. You kind of beat me to it because I wanted to give you each a quick minute to make any final comments if you want. Do you want to continue on for another minute, or do you want to pass it on?
I'll let them go first.
Okay, go ahead. Sheriff, any final thoughts for today?
Thank you for having us here. I think this is a really important conversation. So I want to thank Cien. I want to thank Ernesto and my counterparts, John and Carla. I also would like to make a pitch for recruiting for the sheriff's office. So if you know someone,
there you go,
who wants to be a correctional deputy, a deputy sheriff trainee, we are offering $25,000 hiring bonuses. So sign them up and get them in. We also have community academies going on, and we have a community academy for teenagers in the summer. So follow us on social media, see what we're doing. Be sure to check up on our social media to see when we are having our town hall, so you can come out and maybe talk to me personally, ask me any questions you have. If you have a group that you would like me to address, contact us as well, and I will make an effort to do those as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Chief, any final thoughts?
Just thank you so much, everyone. And just like Eddie and Carla, we're all hiring. So we have a website of joinsantarosapd.com. One of our videos, we have 7 different videos on there. One of those videos is completely in Spanish, like that, as we continue to recruit across our community. But also, they have the teams that meet once a quarter. It was important for us, so we meet once a month at the Santa Rosa Police Department with our community groups. So it's all about investment. So for us, we actually have it open right now. So it's the Chief's Community Ambassador Team, and this team meets with our police auditor. We just went over, just last week we met, and we went over all the pursuits that we had in Santa Rosa in 2022. We talked in detail about why those pursuits occurred, what learning lessons. We reviewed our pursuit policy, so they get in-hand approach or touch approach about what's going on with our policies. They hear from our police auditor. So if you want to be part of the Chiefs Community Ambassador Team, it's open right now. You can just Google Santa Rosa Chiefs Community Ambassador Team, and it's going to be open for the next 3 weeks. And we're trying to get 20 diverse community members who either work, live, are frequent in Santa Rosa. So thanks so much for the opportunity. My email is jcregan@srcity.org. Email me anytime if you have questions or concern involving the Santa Rosa Police Department. And my promise is I will look into it, and we'll make sure that we're the best police department in the Bay Area.
And just remember that those out there in the job market right now have the upper hand. Okay, so you can apply to all 3
Yeah.
and look for your best offer, because it's possible. Okay,
He doesn't give the bonus to entry level, only the laterals. I give it to entry level.
And lawyers make way more money than police officers.
Not with overtime.
Listen, it was a delight and a pleasure to be up here with you 3 today.
Can I say one closing
absolutely,
comment?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Herman and Cien, for having us. I know that your mission is to have difficult conversations. I went to your amazing event last month. I applaud you for hosting these difficult conversations. And if you want to have another one with me or the 3 of us, we'll come back and you can ask harder questions. I'm willing to talk to anyone and answer any difficult question and let you know where I'm coming from. Thank you.
Thank you for that, because I know there would be an interest in having all 3 of you come back at some future date to check in as well. So thank you again. It was a pleasure of mine to be here with the 3 of you, and I hope everybody got what they needed. But they're here. Please spend some time to interact with them as we continue to end the program. So Herman, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you. Let's give them another round of applause. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Like Ernesto said, we are going to start kind of cleaning up, but y'all are more than welcome to hang out and ask and engage with our guest speakers. Thank you so much for answering our questions. Thank you to Ernesto. The Puente y Ganas Awards application is coming out next week. We have our big 500 plus event under the tent in June, but we are looking for nominations for the Puente y Ganas Awards. It's going to be opening up next week. For those of you that want to join our general membership meeting, it is March 31st, but that one is actually for our membership only. It's our first ever membership meeting. So if you're not a member yet, I highly encourage you to take a flyer and check out our membership program. The other thing is to fill out the CAC survey out of the Ayalero to provide feedback to them. But once again, thank you very much. And we look forward to also seeing some of you back on April 21st at Sally Tomatoes, where we're going to be delving deep into environmental justice and equity. And that'll be at Sally Tomatoes. So thank you very much once again, and have a great weekend.